Well, welcome, welcome, welcome to the Overcomers Bible Fellowship Show. Bring you greetings on this beautiful, beautiful evening that you're watching or day that you're watching. Know that it doesn't matter about the what's going on around you. It's your perspective on what's going on around in your life. And I promise you that things can be a lot better than what you might even imagine or might even be experiencing. Just keep the faith, hold faith in the Lord, and I promise you that things can turn around for the good. I bring you greetings from West Angeles Church of God in Christ, where Bishop Charles E. Blake is our pastor and Mrs. May L. Blake is our First Lady. We're going to take you into the Overcomers Bible Fellowship gathering on this morning, and on this particular day, we were talking about protecting your dreams. It has to be like a treasure chest. You know, things that's valuable, you protect it. And so that means that you have to protect the dreams, because people won't be able to see what you can see. People won't be able to believe what you can believe. And so this is why you can't share. You can't just do a whole lot of run off at the mouth all the time. Have to learn how to do it with wisdom, and when and with whom to do it with. And so I invite you to grab your pen and your paper. You might want to take some notations. Our contact information will be at the very end of the show. We welcome your phone calls, your email, your show comments, your prayer requests. If you want to contact us, do so. Again, grab your pen and your paper, and we're going to be talking from Genesis, sort of talking about the life of Joseph. We know God gave him some awesome dreams that other people can get on board with. Don't be surprised when people can get on board with your dreams, but don't become discouraged. So sit back, be blessed, know that I love you, and I'll look to see you next time. Protect your dreams.
To keep continue on, and he gives us what we need. It's not going to be what we want all the time, because we want the manifestation. But he says, look, I'm going to give you dreams, and I'm going to give you words of things to come, but you just have to hang on in there with me. It hasn't come to pass yet, but it shall come to pass. Just stay in a position. Stay on Highway 10, or stay on the 10. Stay on the road that I've showed you, because at the end of that, you're going to reach New York. I don't care how many cities you have to go through. I don't care how many people you encounter. I don't care what kind of weather you encounter. I don't care what happens along the way. If you just stay on the right journey, the right highway, you're going to end up in New York. It's not going to be the same every inch of the way. Why? Because there's differences along the way. But if you just stay centered in my faith mix that I give you along the way, then it shall come to pass, no matter what. Read verse 9, please.
And he dreamed another dream, and told his brothers, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me.
Joseph dreamed another and said, listen to this dream. Ooh, listen to this dream. He real excited about his dreams, because they were all, in his favor. we don't say that when we're being rebuked by the Lord, but they were all in his favor. Listen to this dream. Oh my Lord. Sometime after the first dream, Joseph dreamed again. He had two dreams providing verification that the message is true, since the two dreams concerning the same subject were the same. And we have to know that his second dream had implications as serious as the first. It predicted that Joseph's father and mother, not just his brothers, but his father and his mother, would also bow down to him. If Joseph was unwise in telling the first dream, knowing how irritating it was to his brethren, he was even more wrong in sharing the second dream, especially because it set him not only above his brothers, but also above his father and his mother. Joseph seems to be afflicted with the sort of pride often apparent among the favored and blessed. See, this is why there's a process along the journey to the blessing that God is going to give us. Because we have to know how to handle the blessing. Because there's a certain pride that can be attached to our sanctified selves when we have arrived, or when we are arriving, because, we got it going on. And so we have to be real careful that we don't get exhausted in our experience, in our blessing, because that same blessing a cursing for us if we don't know how to handle it. And again, you know, in a natural sense, you know, there's a debate about whether or not if students should leave high school and go into the pros or skip college, you know, because they miss that developmental stage. You know, there's a developmental stage that God has for us from between here and New York. If I don't encounter the experiences that I encounter along the way, then when I take hold of the blessing, then I will misuse the blessing that is meant to bless me. It'll turn around, and not only will it not bless me, but it'll create differences, and it'll create situations between us and others. Why? Because where God could use our lives to be a blessing to others, then our lives become that because people turn off. God help us to be wise enough for people not to turn off from us in our life just because we are in a blessed season and they're in a lack season. Because how many of you know that as we live this way, it's gonna change.
Yeah.
Where you gonna become in that lack season, and they're gonna become in that blessed. Just keep on living.
Yeah.
It won't always be this way all the time. And that's one of the things that I really pray, Lord, help me to enjoy where I am right there. Don't help me. And this is Tonya 1-1. Help me not to keep looking over there. When I'm on a mountain, don't help me not to look at the valley, because God is so good up here oh Lord, what's going to happen over there? But help us to enjoy the moment, because see, He's refreshing us for the valley.
Amen.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
And so we need the fullness of the mountaintop experience, because the valley is so low under the mountain that He's building us up so high because we're going to go so low.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Brenda.
That reminds me of a book that I read, and some of you may have read it, called Hind's Feet.
Oh, yes.
And it's an excellent book. And in the book, this young person is it speaks in analogy. So it's like it has people representing different people. But the whole thing is this little girl is being led to the top. And at the end of the book, what happens is when she gets up on the mountaintop, she gets hinds feet. It blessed me because in the book of Habakkuk, that's what it tells you, that you're going to have hinds feet. Well, if you look at a road, what happens is when they're in the mountains, once they reach that top, they can jump over a river. They can go down to the valley. They can go anywhere that they've been already. So another lesson is when Dr. Lewis was saying you have to take those steps to develop yourself, there is a reason why you have to develop yourself, because God expects that when you get here, you're going to remember the person who's on this level, the person who's on this level, the person who's hit rock bottom. And you'll be able to go to each one of those levels to minister to them.
Amen. Amen.
God has a reason for each season. I know that since October 1st, since my vacation, it's just been, it's been nonstop. You know, it's been great. It's been so great until it's scary. It really is. It's been so great until it's scary. And I have to keep reminding myself to live in the moment. You know, I was able to go and be with my parents for 2 weeks. In the midst of that, and then my uncle passed, and so now my parents are here. In the midst of the bereavement, there's the joy of my parents being here. But then, if you look at it, during the vacation, I was the only one able to go back to my parents, not my sister who's on dialysis, who's physically challenged, not my sons, that kind of thing. And so, in a sense, in the midst of the bereavement, my parents were brought here to enjoy all of that. And then the reality, see, it's one thing as a bereavement director at West Angeles when I help y'all. It's another thing when I have to help myself. And the reality comes home to my door. And the reality of seeing that physical changes within my parents, the aging process. And even that, bear with me for a moment. Even in that, the grace of God, I believe, is evident. You know, God, whatever God allows to happen in our life, He knows the best situation, and He knows how to take care of things. And I know that I had a rude awakening because my parents are aging, and that was kind of like a shock kind of thing, because it's one thing about people aging, but then again, I'm talking about my parents aging. You know, my father, my mother used to be, the Hercules of my life, and they're beginning. I can see the aging setting in, and that really, that really was a eye-opening experience for me. And I said, well, Lord, there's a reason why you have them down there and I'm here. All that you're doing and all that we're experiencing during this season, don't, help me not to look from here over to there saying what's going to happen because everything's been so good here. We have to, again, allow God to love us on the mountain, because in that valley, you're going to wonder where is the love, even though the love has not left us. Are y'all with me?
Yes.
Yeah. So Joseph was blessed, but that pride may have hitched on. And we have to not allow that pride to hitch on, because then that creates more problems for us than what we need. So read then verse 10, please.
And he told to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to lie down ourselves to their work?
Now Joseph uses the one who can do no wrong in his father's eyes. But this dream offended even his father. The implications are incredible even to Jacob. Is it possible that Joseph's father, Jacob, does not know about the first dream regarding the sheaves? Jacob certainly wants his son to be the leader of the family, but to hear Joseph now declares his authority in this fashion is a little bit too much. Is Joseph really arrogant enough to think that his mother and father and his brothers were going to bow down to him? Get a grip. At this moment, it seemed that Joseph was all wrong, because remember, he was the favorite. And he could do no wrong according to his father. But now his father kind of like, excuse me? And he found his place of being alone. Along that trip between here and New York, one of the things you're going to encounter, you're going to encounter some aloneness. You're going to have to know, and we're going to have to know that that is encompassed all that we will need for development to that place that we're going to get to when we arrive in New York is along the way. Joseph found himself in a place of being alone. And how many of you know that Joseph's going to have to find peace and find wholeness in that, even in that experience of being alone while he was with his father, who he knew loved him, because there was going to come a time in the pit and even in the prison that he was going to be around people who didn't love him, that he was going to be alone. See, again, the preparation of what we need that will come to be in our lives, God prepares us in safe environments. Are you following me? Here he was, he knew his father loved him. He knew that his father was in his corner. But he experienced a season of being alone. God allows us to develop in a safe environment. And it's important that we allow him to develop us in a safe environment. It's just like a child living at home. A home should be a safe environment. Home should be a nurturing, a loving kind of environment. Because once you hit that door and hit the world, you know the world is not going to be nurturing, a loving, or a safe situation. And so it's important to get that healthy development in that safe place. Because it's going to come a time when you're going to have to utilize it in an unsafe place. So, Joseph experienced a season of being alone. There with them, there with his father, but a sense of being alone. But yet, God still had a purpose designed for his life. And if we go along the way practicing sin, and yet God yet has a purpose for my life. And yet God yet has a purpose for my life. We run into our hard times and stump our toes and yet to have to encourage ourselves. And yet God has a plan for my life. And yet God, when they get through, and yet God has a plan for my life. When you get this scripture, and yet God has a plan for my life. We have to encourage ourselves. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. We have to say, and yet. When the doctor tells you, whatever the doctor tells you, and yet. God has a plan for my life. When they say they don't love you no more, they walk up. And yet, God has a plan for my life. When the employer says, you got to go, I don't want you here anymore, you got to go. But what am I going to do? I have my mortgage to pay. I have my family to feed. And yet, God has a plan for my life. If my household forecloses, if the household forecloses, and yet, God has a plan for my life. When you're misunderstood, and yet, God has a plan for my life. When bereavement comes, and yet, God has a plan for my life. But along the way, we have to encourage ourselves. Because if we don't, we will get folded up into the midst of what we are experiencing. So we have to say, and yet, God has purpose. God has a plan. And not just a wonderful plan. I love that, again, in the New Living Translation, where John 10:10. I guess because I'm just a simple thinking person. I love, make it plain to me. Make it plain so that it will bless my heart. And verse 10 says, verse 10, the thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. My purpose is to give life in all its fullness. Give life in A-L-L, 3-letter word, small word, but it encompasses everything in all its fullness. Yeah. Not just a slice of fullness, not just a teaspoon of fullness. My purpose, Jesus said, for us is to give life in all its fullness. That's a blessing, y'all. Yes, it is. That means in all, that means it's no lacking. And even those temporary lackings, we can say, I shall experience fullness even in this that lacks right now. Because Jesus came to give me fullness in all aspects of life. And so here was Joseph sharing with his father the dream and his father's reaction. His father gives him a gentle rebuke for it, yet observes the sin. He took notice of it more than it seemed he seemed to have done. He insinuated that it was an idle dream, but his mother was brought in, who some scholars say was dead at that time, and so it could have been referring to Leah, or maybe other scholars say maybe it was out of chronological order, and maybe it was back when Rachel. That's besides the point. The bottom line is that Jacob did not, and people may throw off like they don't believe what you're saying, but like Jacob did, Jacob rebuked him, but then Jacob kind of said, well, maybe, maybe. That should encourage us too, because of the fact that even though people may act hard toward us, when God is in the midst of it, they can't eliminate that element of it. In other words, Jacob pondered that in his heart, because he said, well, maybe George might rise up and be that man that I will be for. Jacob, like Mary, kept things in his heart and no doubt remembered them long afterwards, even when they came to be. Read verse 11, please.
And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same.
Again, I just remind us that while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father gave it some thought and wondered what it all meant. Jacob seems unaware of the danger that Joseph is in. This is seen by the fact that Jacob is willing to send Joseph to check on his brothers one more time in Genesis 37, 12, and 13. And what we have to know is that, again, God help us to be so alert, because if on the natural side, if Jacob realized the danger that Joseph was in from his brothers, he would not have put him in a situation of sending him back out to check on his brothers. But on the other hand, it was providential for Joseph to walk in the path that he did. Why? Because those were the actions that were laid out before him. But again, that just reminds us, Lord, help me to be so sensitive to you that I don't be loose in my thinking, loose in my talking, loose in my doing. But Lord, help me really to be prayerful. Lord, help me not to do the wrong thing. Help me to do the right thing. Help me to be so sensitive to you that I will send out when I need to send out and not send out when I don't need to send out. And so Jacob sent Joseph out to check on his brothers. And of course, we know that was not a good natural move, but thanks be to God, and yet God had a purpose for his life. That kind of cleaned it up. That kind of cushioned what could have been what was a horrible experience, but yet God was there to cushion what he was about to experience. So read verse 19, please.
And they said one to another, behold, his dream cometh.
It isn't hard to see how unwise it was for Joseph to tell his dreams in the way he did. It only made his brothers hate him. And so consequently, instead of, here come brother, here come my brother, here come my brother, they said, here come this dreamer. That dreamer. He wasn't even a part of them in their minds. Emotionally, they had disconnected with him. He was, he was not one of them. And of course, where they were, they had gone to one place, and then they left and went to another place, and so they were like about 60 miles away from home. And of course, all we think we need is space and time away from the accounting, the party that we're accountable to, and we feel as though we can get away with anything and everything. No matter where we are, we cannot get away with things. It's going to eventually come up. People feel as though that, well, I can go to San Diego and have a relationship, have an affair, because I'm away from LA. There's nobody going to see. It's amazing how people see. Even when I was traveling, I was in Philadelphia, and I ran into Dr. Wanda Turner. And so we had a chance to talk. Now what if I would have been with my boyfriend in Philadelphia? Okay, forget Philadelphia. What about when I ended up in Atlanta? I could have been with my boyfriend, because y'all didn't see me because y'all was in LA. But who walks up to me? I don't know if you know Terry McCoy, but Victor McCoy's brother. I didn't know Terry had relocated his family to Atlanta. He walked up to me because he works at Atlanta. He works at the Atlanta airport. And so we had dialogue. You see what I'm saying? There's no such thing as getting away. Because see, I'm accountable to y'all, but see, y'all don't see what I do. And here, God had people along the way. The point being is that you can't get away from you. You can't go far enough to get away where it justifies and it seals an act of approval on the wrong that we do. We just can't get away with that. Look at the prisons. They are locked up of people who thought they could beat the system. We can't beat the system. What's done in the dark is going to come to the light.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they were far away from home. And so here comes this dreamer. Let's remedy our problem once and for all. Read 20, please.
Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams.
We shall see what shall become of his dreams. They decided to defeat Joseph's offending dreams by attacking him. Without intending to, they put Joseph's dreams to the ultimate test. If the dreams really were from God, they could not be defeated by the hatred of their brothers. But Joseph sure enough could enjoy some peace along the way from his brothers if he just kept his mouth shut, or not celebrating himself so much. How scornfully they reproved him for his dreams. As we talked about the dreamer coming, that's what they said, and we will see what comes of his dreams. This shows what it was that enraged them. They could not dare to think of bond to him. This is what they were plotting to prevent by the murder of him. Okay, I know one thing, I won't be bound to him if we kill him. If we get rid of him, we don't have to worry about binding him, because I am not bound to him. You have to, don't get that wrong, Joseph. I will never, ever bow to you. And so we have to be real careful because of the fact that when we become enraged, we don't think the same. We don't think reasonably. We don't think sound. We don't think with wisdom. We don't act sound. We don't act with wisdom. We just do what we need to do to eliminate why we're enraged. And so God, help us to not harbor in our hearts. Help us not to become so enraged. Help us not to be angry at people. Even the Bible tells us that we shouldn't let the what? Sun go down. Why? Because you lay there and you, I'm going to get MJ. I didn't get her today, but. Let me see. Let me think. Oh, that's right. She goes there every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. We should let that stuff ferment in our hearts. Why? Because of the fact that it would drive us to do things that we normally would not do. So there he was out there with his brother who plotted to destroy him, to eliminate him. Read 21, please. Now Reuben is the oldest of the brethren. He is the one who assessed responsibility as the firstborn son to save Joseph by suggesting that they cast him into a pit. Genesis, the 22nd chapter. For some reasons unknown, Reuben apparently leaves Joseph in the care of his other brothers, even though he knew what their intent were. They already had begun to form a plot for Joseph's assassination, for which he was rescued only by the voice of Reuben, who suggests that he should rather be cast into the wells that were probably already dried up because it was during the summertime. Reuben, who at another time committed incest with his father's concubine, took a small measure of leadership as the elder son, figuring he could save Joseph from death and rescue him later. He simply, so Reuben could have simply rose up and said, this is wrong, we can't do this. He didn't, because he wanted to do right by Joseph without alienating his brothers. See, we want to be friends on both sides. We can't be friends on both sides. You know, what we stand for is going to alienate us from the other side. And what we have to do